Baron here with Red Baron Reviews, and up today we're taking a look at the Smith & Wesson 317-3. This is the current offering from Smith & Wesson in the kit gun. Now what is the kit gun? It is a J-frame, all aluminum, minus like the hammer, the trigger, and the barrel. J-frame, 22 long rifle. It is an 8-shot. It is double action and single action. And this gun is a very specific purpose-built firearm. Now what do I mean by that? Well, if you just want a 22 revolver to shoot with, even in a J-frame for plinking and things like that, you might be better off with one of the steel frame offerings. And the reason I say that is generally a heavier revolver, even in 22, is easier to shoot because your movements aren't as easily translated through the gun. When you get into a gun this lightweight, one of the drawbacks is that every little movement you make is amplified because the gun is so lightweight. So why go with the lightweight gun? Well, as mentioned, it's purpose-built, and that is to be ultralight. So your ultralight backpackers, your hunters, say you're a pilot, right, like a bush pilot or something like that. This would be very easy to throw on the hip and forget about. You get 8 rounds of 22 plus a 50-round box, doesn't weigh anything, and you've got a way to acquire small game. If you're hiking or something like that for self-defense, again, 8 rounds of 22, especially with Federal Punch these days, not a bad choice, honestly, even for self-defense. 8 rounds of it, almost no recoil. You have decent sight radius, decent capacity in a revolver, and no recoil. Kind of hard to beat. And just understand that there is a little more mastery to shoot this well because of how light it is. Now, with the 3-inch barrel, you do get a longer sight radius. While we're speaking about the sights, the factory sights are awful. They are a rear V-notch sight with a square post and a round fiber optic. Horrible. Worst sight picture I've ever seen because nothing really aligns right. If you put the top of the post into the V-notch across the top of this rear sight here, the fiber optic's too low. You're cutting it in half and you won't hit. If you get the fiber optic to where you can see it, you're shooting too high, and yeah, you can adjust back and forth, but remembering where to hold because none of the shapes line up with the rear sight is very difficult. So I opted to put on a square target rear sight along with a standard ramp front sight, which I painted orange. And now the gun is actually fairly easy to shoot. Not that it wasn't before, but I wouldn't feel comfortable, like let's say this was a survival type gun. You know, you throw this in a survival pack, your ultralight backpacking, something like that. Things go south and you have to use the gun to acquire food. I wouldn't feel comfortable shooting a rabbit or a squirrel and then being able to actually recover it because I might hit the animal, but I couldn't tell you where I'm going to hit it. Therefore, it could get away and you've wasted a round and you haven't caught dinner. So not really optimal with the factory sights in my opinion, but you can get these sights for around 80 bucks all said and done, which isn't bad, but when you factor in account that the gun is already a little over 800, like 8 to 850 depending on where you're at, and then factor in tax and transfer, kind of an expensive gun to not come with a good set of sights. And Smith & Wesson will not change the sights out for you. I tried that. Not under warranty. I offered to pay to get decent sights, like on their, I think it's their Model 60 Pro, which is same barrel length. You get a square notch rear with a brass bead, or now the current offering is a tritium front sight, and they won't sell those individually. And then even to try to get this sight set up here, you can send it in. Good luck. They're going to look at it and tell you whether they can or can't. If they can, then they're going to tell you how much it costs. They can't tell you anything up front. And that seems to be par for the course for Smith & Wesson customer service nowadays. Luckily, I was able to call Brownells, and they did have the rear sight. However, they did not have the front sight, but the gentleman on the phone gave me the part number and a website where I could purchase it, which is super cool because they're not benefiting from that. But I was able to get what I needed, and now it's great. As far as other modifications to this, I did remove the Hillary hole. I hate it on Smith & Wessons, I really do. It just bothers me having that there. I feel like there's a way you could get ingress of debris and things like that, and I'm always worried that it may turn on, although it's not a very legitimate concern because I've never had that happen to me. I just don't like the idea. So I do plug this. Just know that that does void your warranty should you do that. The grips on this, I believe, are Hogue grips, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a long time since I purchased these. I got these from Speed Bees, which I don't have the speed loader on me, but you saw in the intro, I was using a speed loader. That is a Speed Bees speed loader. I purchased them both to get a better deal, and I really like these grips. Now, you will lose your pinky, but for those who shoot tiny snub-nose revolvers anyway, you're used to that. You don't really need it, and on this gun, it just keeps it nice and compact. In this format, it fits very well in a fanny pack, which is great, especially if you're going to go on the trail or hike or camp or something like that. When I jog in the mornings, this is the gun that's with me just because it doesn't weigh anything, and I get 8 rounds of 22, and then I have the speed loader in the front pouch of the fanny pack, which works really, really well. Another place that this could be useful would be like, say, in a tactical kit, so maybe not necessarily as your dedicated sidearm, but if you think about it, your standard infantryman, your standard concerned citizen, things like that, doesn't really need a sidearm if you're going to be carrying a long gun with, say, a chest rig or a plate carrier. Now, hear me out. We're not high-speed operators. We're not kicking indoors. We don't need that quick draw and shoot type deal, right? Because we're not that level. Where this comes in handy is if you do want that sidearm, but you want the weight savings, you can carry the gun and a box of 50 rounds for about what a loaded AR-15 magazine would weigh. You're gaining 58 rounds of ammunition for what would be 30 rounds in your primary firearm should it go down. So not a bad idea there, in my opinion, if you're a concerned citizen, something like that, and you just want to throw this in an empty mag pouch on a chest rig or plate carrier, pretty good to go for that. And I know people are going to talk about how 22 is not effective and all these other things. Guys, at the end of the day, it's self-defense distances. 3 or 4 rounds of this is going to completely ruin your life and end your world. And for as little recoil this has, I mean, just imagine 2 to the chest, 1 to the head would be very doable. The gun's super controllable, even at 20 yards. I'm not concerned with it being a 22 from that standpoint. Now, where this gun's not going to fit some people, again, I mentioned plinking, target shooting, things like that. Is it capable? Yes. Is it ideal? No. Just simply because it is such a light gun. Sorry, guys, I got mosquitoes swarming me. So probably not for those guys. Also, if you are backpacking, say in grizzly country or black bear and things like that, again, probably not ideal. I would want to have something a little more substantial than a 22 in that scenario. Better than nothing. Probably not much better than bear spray against bears. However, in the backcountry, to have something that you can acquire game with if you're just simply trekking or backpacking, not a bad idea. The other thing, too, that a lot of people don't realize about this is, let's say that you are backpacking, camping, flying, whatever the case may be, and you crash and you go down in a remote area. They launch a search party. Maybe you can hear dogs in the distance, that type of thing, and you're yelling and you're yelling and you're yelling and nobody's coming. You can fire 3 rounds from this, which is kind of the universal distress signal, right? So it does double as a way for people to find you. It's a lot louder than a whistle, and that's a lot louder than yelling. So that's an added benefit, and again, the gun doesn't weigh very much. So for an outdoorsman, this works really well. If you're going hiking or camping or something like that, and you want something, I generally put around a snake shot in this for snake or small critters or things like that. And again, self-defense is mentioned. This gun disappears either inside the waistband or outside the waistband. There's a million J-frame holsters out there. They're inexpensive, and this gun just disappears because it doesn't weigh anything, yet you get a lot more accuracy because you get the single action and some decent sights should you upgrade them. They also make red dots for these. There's some different mounting options you can get as well. So you've got a lot of options and versatility with this gun. It's just not a target revolver, so don't go into it expecting that, but it is fairly accurate for what it is. So for $800 or $850, do I think it's worth it? Honestly, no, if you're just wanting kind of a do-all gun. This isn't that. If you're wanting something that is super lightweight and concealable, but yet still very shootable, then yes. But again, we're spending over 8 bills. It's a lot of money to ask for something like this at the end of the day. I will say this is very convenient from the standpoint as a jogger or something like that, where you can throw this in a fanny pack and run with it. That's where I get the most use from this gun, and I forget I have it with me. I mean, it weighs about what my phone weighs, so very good for that purpose. But to be honest, in today's day and age, September of 2025, I think even the steel frame version of this is going to do better for most people in outdoors applications. And I think that the new Smith & Wesson Mountain Gun and 22 long rifle, if you're wanting a rimfire and are willing to spend some money on it, would serve most people much better than this gun would. Now, as mentioned, when it comes to accuracy with the factory sights, I wouldn't be real comfortable taking small game at any real distance with this. With the standard square notch rear sight and the ramp front sight, I would feel pretty comfortable at taking squirrels or rabbits at 15 yards or in. And honestly, on a rabbit, maybe out to 20 yards and still be able to recover it. But much past that, this isn't the gun for you. Find something that's a little easier to shoot, because that 15 to 20 yard difference and the amount of play that's transferred to the gun through your movement as you're pulling the trigger is huge. You wouldn't think about it, but when you get into something this light, again, it really just projects and amplifies the amount of movement that you have as you're pulling the trigger. So really a 15 yard and in gun, if you're going to be making headshots or shots on about the size of an egg-sized target, very doable. Past that though, it gets real challenging unless you're a lot better shot than me, which I would say a lot of people probably are. But guys, at the end of the day, I don't regret purchasing this at all. For me, this works really good for my purposes. Again, I honestly think that the mountain gun that's being offered now would probably do everything I want better outside of throwing this in a fanny pack to run. But again, that's a very specific purpose, which this gun is specific purpose built. So, if you guys have any questions, drop them down below in the comments. I'm completely non-biased on this. I have no money to gain or lose whether you like this or not. I paid full retail for this, plus all the holsters, the 2 different grips, the sights, the Hillary hole plug, all that good stuff. So if you guys have questions, drop them down below and I'll do my best to answer you, and hopefully you get what you want out of this gun, or you move on to a different model that'll better suit you. So guys, thank you for watching, and as always, stay free.